FullArmor Show. Happy Tuesday, Paranormal Tuesday. Josh Corey, our resident conspiracy theorist, is here with us. So before we get into any topics, I want to talk to you about the basic mindset of being a conspiracy theory, a person who's drawn to that, or open to that. For yourself, for others who you've spoken to or met with, colleagues, is there any sort of a profile of someone who would tend to be into conspiracy theories?
Well, a caller earlier calling about 9/11 said 9/11 truthers. And usually that's a term we label ourselves as. People in society consider us, conspiracy theorists. We call us truth seekers. We're just out there trying to get the real story of what happened. We don't necessarily believe the official one, so we're just seeking the truth of what actually happened from all the angles that we can gather.
So I think it's closer, Tony, one we're saying. When you go into any situation, any set of facts, do you, it's as honest as you can be about yourself and objective, do you feel like you go in with a skeptical, I bet the first report is not the accurate one, or do you go in and say, I'm going to go where the facts lead me?
I do definitely tend to not believe the initial reports, especially when they're coming from the government. So I do have that base skepticism acting at all times. But I'd like to think that carries over into pretty much everything. So when I'm looking at the opposite side, I'm carrying with that base skepticism saying, well, I don't necessarily believe this to be true either. This is just more information for me to compare to the other information that I've gotten. And then after that, let's see if I can get some more information. And is it sort of
you have to get information from multiple sources and compare it against each other before you can really even begin to accept something as an accurate fact?
That's it. That's how I describe myself, is I recognize patterns. I try to take in as much information as I can and recognize the patterns that are occurring in all the information and try to extrapolate what I think happened from that. So when I see names like the Rothschilds or J.P. Morgan or all these names that keep popping up, and no matter what I'm looking into, that throws out an immediate red flag and say, okay, well, something's going on here with this one. So I can't just dismiss it as conspiracy theories that are just trying to make this guy look bad. These people have legitimate...
How do you think... Do you have any idea how information is disseminated by the government? That when NBC says a government source is quoted as saying this, do you have any idea how that happens, the mechanisms within the government when something goes from a happening, a situation, into here's the story?
I'd say it all starts with the newswire. And it's all just controlled information. And we can go on YouTube and watch nightly news sources going over the same one line from all across the country, doing the exact same line about the exact same story.
We got some sort of a primer with Benghazi when we saw the inner workings of the email shooting back and forth saying, okay, why don't we say this? Or no, that's not plausible. Let's go with that. And sort of confirmed whether you believe that the whole thing is rotten and Hillary Clinton belongs in prison or not. There's no doubt a message was being massaged. They were trying to decide, okay, we're going to say it was an attack. We're going to say it's a video. What are we going to say? And in hindsight, isn't that so stupid? I remember watching that video on YouTube and thinking, these Muslims are the dumbest damn people I've ever seen in my life. I can't believe they're going to knock over a taco stand, much less attack an embassy or a CIA site because of this stupid damn video. What a dumb story that was from the very beginning.
And so many people ran with it.
Yeah, everyone.
Right.
Because it was convenient. We're so drawn to, this works for me. Yeah, that's a fact. This works for my narrative. This works for my situation.
And that's the whole, whoever is able to put that information out first, whoever gets that first information, that's it.
Because they shape the story.
Because so many people are just trained to accept them as the authority.
What about things like, we talked in the last segment about, like, Sandy Hook? There's immediately people saying that didn't happen. It was a false flag. Boston bombing. That didn't happen. It was a false flag. Are there things that you yourself, as a conspiracy person, a truth-seeking person, go, oh, this is just stupid. This is just objectionable. Or are you wide open to, okay, let's talk about it?
I thought myself pretty much open to anything until I ran across the flat earth. Then, of course, when I saw that was immediately stupid and rejected out of hand. Whereas something like the hollow earth was always my favorite conspiracy theory to really want to be true. But I just really didn't buy into it.
Yeah.
I saw it, I kind of looked at the information, and I see a lot of bad secondhand information that sounds made up, and I'm just really not buying into the whole. And even the flat Earth wouldn't disregard a hollow Earth. I mean, man's only dug down, 8 miles? 12 kilometers is the deepest hole we've ever dug. We have no idea. They say it's molten iron or something that creates our core of the Earth, but if it's magnetized, show me another metal that you can heat up that hot and still maintain a magnetism. It doesn't.
I've said that for years.
Yeah.
I say it all the time, don't I?
Just last you lunch last week, you brought it up, yeah.
You know what? Show me a metal that's...
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. It's bad.
So what have you looked at that others believe and you don't? If anything comes to mind.
Well, I hold the most skepticism with something like the Queen of England being a reptile. A guy named David Icke and his whole...
That's a good place to draw the line.
Well, I think there's several others. That should be one. I think that's a good place to do it, yeah. This idea that the elite ruling class are shape-shifting reptiles and that's what's controlling humanity is a little bit far-fetched for me.
Watch that be the one true one. Everything else was crap. They're like, yeah, we're all lizards. You missed that one.
Well, David Icke was putting out a whole lot of really good information. If you look at his early stuff, he speaks about a lot of good truths that are out there. But then the later he goes, it seems like he's sort of corrupted, and he comes out with this reptilian shape-shifting.
Slippery slope.
I guess it is.
Maybe it's like drugs, like anything else. It's, this used to be good enough for me, but now I need this kind of porn or this kind of a drug. And maybe if you're into this kind of thing, eventually it's not enough, the Rothschilds. You need the Queen of England to be a damn lizard.
Well, I think that might be partially true. I mean, Alex Jones definitely helped me in my awakening from my slumber that I was indoctrinated into. And he's the definitely number one fear-porn guy. He's the one out there screaming and yelling, banging on the table, trying to make people as scared as they possibly can be, because he conveniently comes in behind at the station break with something to sell you to make everything better.
Yeah.
So it works out real well for him.
Yeah.
But
people said that for years about Glenn Beck. That Glenn would cry and scream and gnash his teeth and talk about this, and then follow it up with, so come out to Washington, D.C. and come to my event and, get my new book.
But you think about the conspiracy, whatever it might be, whatever conspiracy's floating around. Then you look at our society and everybody's society, for that matter, all over the world, how things get leaked, how information comes out. And it just seems like with as many people are able to touch it, how can they control that? It's like we would go back to Bigfoot, okay? I believe in Bigfoot. Well, then sooner or later you got to say, somebody's got to find a Bigfoot. Sooner or later. The same with any kind of a conspiracy. If someone's telling you a story about something, any group of people that have touched on this information, how do they keep them all quiet? How would like a Snowden comes out and starts putting out the information? Man, the media jumps on that in a heartbeat, and it goes out
for
worldwide.
example, if we didn't go to the moon, why don't we have absolute proof, positive proof that we didn't, because it would be there.
Right.
There's proof of every truth. And we're such a...
How many hundreds of thousands?
Money.
Or threats.
Yeah, but all the people that were involved in that, how do you keep every one of them quiet?
Nobody was involved in it.
Well, just imagine
smoke and mirrors.
In the 30s, if somebody came out and said the government is involved in a secret program to create this mega bomb created from an atom. Just this tiny atom is going to create this huge bomb. It's going to devastate an entire city and kill millions of people.
Right.
People would say this guy's a conspiracy theorist, but for 40 years, they kept the Manhattan Project completely secret.
But
nobody let him. That stayed in the bag.
Right, but that was 30 years ago. And now we can't keep anything secret. Anything happens, it seems like it's just made. There's the 24. We talk about 24-hour news cycle. We talk about people get the information.
I don't know. There's 28 pages of the 9/11 report that we haven't seen. That's secret.
And see, again,
well, somebody's seen it.
We're talking about people that are first to deliver that information. So if somebody's looking, okay, well, now what's next? And somebody's going to come out and say, well, hey, here's what's next. 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission report.
Right.
Read the official 9/11 Commission report. Nobody cares that the government says that the ground liquefied, the plane disappeared into it, then the ground re-solidified, and the plane's so deep that nobody can ever dig it out, and that's what happened in Shanksville. Nobody cares what it says in the report. 28 pages aren't going to do a darn thing.
Quick break, right back. Paranormal Tuesday, your call. Stumbling across this years and years ago. Is it Admiral Byrd
he made a flight over the North Pole.
Yes, that some article about it, and some explorers going in and finding like this beautiful meadow. And so, tell everyone what the Hollow Earth theory is and your thoughts on it.
Well, really, the Hollow Earth theory goes back a long time. I mean, even as far as the Hindu religious texts, it goes back into the Vedic over 5,000 years ago that just spoke of a world inside the Earth. Now, if we're assuming the Earth is a ball, will be on the inside, and in the center of it is a sun, kind of floating midpoint, floating in the center, and along the contours of the inside of the Earth is the land masses and the water masses, and inside it's said to be super intelligent beings and flying saucers and large dinosaur-type animals and woolly mammoths and all types of really interesting things.
The aliens that we see are actually from the Earth. They're
The
not
inside.
Yeah.
So how big, I'm terrible at this, so I'm trying to get some sense of, would that world be pretty much the same size as ours? Just on the inside as opposed to the outside, as far as just surface area?
I mean, I don't know. That's a good question for AutoCAD. I'd like to, if the ball Earth is 25,000 miles around at the equator, I'm not quite sure how big the inside would have to be.
It depends on how hollow it is.
Right, and how big the crust of the outside that we live on part would be.
So what proof or reason to believe this other than just it's a cool idea do we have?
Well, we have Admiral Byrd, and we have what's reported to have been his diaries. He died, I think, in 47, and that's maybe 57. And the diary came out 2 years later. Apparently, this guy came and said, I found these diaries from Admiral Byrd, and in it talks about seeing, woolly mammoths and birds where they shouldn't be up in the North Pole. And this was a diary from his expedition to the North.
So now you would think, with all the modern technology and satellites, that you would think that we'd know pretty much everything about everything.
Well, there's been other people, too. There's a couple guys, Admiral Cook, I think, he went out there, and lots of reports of seeing faraway land that shouldn't be there. Lots of reports of sun where it shouldn't be if it's in the universe the way they say it is. So I think that's kind of where the whole story originates, is people seeing things that, according to the geocentrists, they shouldn't be seeing. And it's really throwing them off, and they're coming up with this whole idea that...
To have a hollow Earth, do you need a flat Earth, or are they incongruent?
They're definitely not incongruent. I mean, like I said, we've only drilled down 8 miles. Is the deepest humans have ever gone, so who's to say what's 20 miles down? And then if it's only 100, 200 miles up, I mean, that'd be enough to keep several humans in the dark for quite a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, so there's no telling.
Because you have a really skeptical look in your face.
I'm one of those that if I can't disprove it, and then the basis, Josh, too, for a scientist, when a scientist gets a hypothesis, they try and disprove it as much as they can, and then if they can't disprove it...
It is definitely part of the process.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
then it kind of... So, I guess, whatever you come up with, if it's a conspiracy or hollow Earth or whatever, until somebody can come back and say, well, this can't happen because of this, and here's the reasons.
There's been stories of people in Scandinavia, a father and his son, they say, were out trekking across the ice and came across and lived and visited in with the hollow Earth people for a few months, and then came back out and to tell their story. There's been, there's lots of stories. There's lots of...
So are we sort of the idiot cousins
stories
up here on the surface?
It could be. That's one of the things is they say that it's survivors of Atlantis. They went underground when the world flooded, and those are just the survivors of Atlantis just making do in their new environment in the center of the Earth.
Do they know we're here?
I'm sure they would. I mean, given the model of what the hollow Earth is, where there's a big hole at the North Pole and the South Pole, and they're living in the middle and coming and going through the poles, then I would assume they would be aware of us at least. It's one of those things where...
You don't seem convinced.
Oh, it's one of those things that I really, really would have liked to have believed. I just couldn't.
It would be cool. I would rather... Close, would you rather live in a world where there's intelligent beings living on the inside of the Earth, or do you just not care?
Tough question. I think I'd almost rather live on an Earth where there were aliens from other planets, because I feel like you said, are we the the cousin Eddies out there? I mean, we got people. we're walking and we got relatives that are a couple of miles below us and we're not hip to them. I don't know if they're relatives, but that'd make us seem like we were really stupid. That, like you said, Josh, if they're popping up to the North and South Pole and we're not hip to them, how many of them are there? It just seems like, okay, you can say there's other beings and other planets. Well, we haven't been there yet, okay? Oh, we've been to the moon, but not long enough to find out. But, man, if we're on the same planet we're not hip to them, I'd feel really stupid.
The depths of the ocean. I mean, there's places on our planet we can't go to.
I know, but at this point, but it's
Most
still...
of Festus is still...
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Well, even the depths
deep.
of the ocean, there's like a super saline solution at the deepest depths of the ocean. So we can float into water, but pretty soon we come to this point where we just can't get into the next water. We just see it, and we can run into it. We just can't penetrate it. So we can't even go as deep as the oceans are because we run into this strange, super saline
Seems
type
like a
water at the bottom
really
of the
good
ocean.
defense mechanism.
Yeah, right.
Just like lack of oxygen going up high or super cold temperatures going to the extreme north or south. Really good.
Using our limitations
auto-defense.
against us.
That's right. Our own weaknesses.
The only way they can get here is through the water, and if you make it salty enough, they can't get through.
We're fragile humans.
And we're just trying to make friends with people, and they...
Well, the government is creating basically a hollow Earth. They're coring out the Earth and creating these, they're called DUMBs, D-U-M-B, the Deep Underground Military Base. And they're creating these entire basic civilizations with these giant coring machines like you almost see in the cartoons, where this thing that turns and it chews up the dirt and spits it out. Well, they basically have them, and they dig these gigantic holes and just carve out sections of the...
Like on Deep Impact.
I think Jesse Ventura did an episode on it once about one in the Ozarks, and this guy that's building a house, but most of what's going on in the construction is going on underground, and its connection to all the caverns and caves here in the Missouri and all around the world, and how they're all interconnected, and then leads back to...
So watching one of my nerd shows on just aliens, and they're making the point that as much fun as it is to picture them being squids and stuff, that Star Trek probably had it pretty close. That they should be humanoid because, as far as we know, the basic building blocks are the same everywhere, and that the evolution of life should be pretty close. Of course, the gravity, the heat, all those things will shape, just like they have different people on our planet, but that people should have arms and legs and eyeballs and livers as opposed to being dragon people. Well, that was kind of interesting. Does it seem boring to you, or does it make it more realistic?
It may be a little boring.
Yeah, I mean, the building blocks for life are the same as far as we know in our world. But I mean, I've always kind of hated it when science is like, oh, there's nothing can happen on that planet. Well, yet not carbon-based life forms. But what if there's some interdimensional creature that we can't even fathom?
And it's more fun thinking of aliens. I mean, if some guy walks up and goes, "Hi, I'm from Saturn," and he looks like you. How boring.
Is he attractive?
It does seem strange they would assume humans would still evolve the same way they did here on Earth, and that there would still be humans that would look like us.
Especially if you...
Life evolves, but there's a pretty diverse amount of life.
What about evolution? Is that something that you accept, or is that something that, like, the young Earth theory appeals to you?
I accept evolution on a small scale. I mean, I definitely grow. I'm definitely not the person I was when I was born. I've definitely evolved, and I'm constantly changing. But to say that as a species we were once monkeys, I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think we're a little bit more special than that. I don't think there's genetic coding from two different species coming together to create a whole new genetic code and a whole new species of...
What's your best guess at what happened?
Geez, that's a deep one. I'm going to have to say that man was created. There's so many things out there saying the same essential story, that we are created from a creator. And since that's kind of the way things work, since in our reality matter cannot be created or destroyed, somewhere the initial matter had to come from somewhere. It had to become something somehow.
Darwin and survival of the fittest and
that's all racist garbage.
Seriously,
yeah, that's what it is. It's all eugenic-based racist garbage. It's basically the basis of what the Nazis stood for in setting this master race. It's the same kind of thing. It's the origin of the species and
just the master race of everything, and
So do you
everything else
think
below that's worthless.
99.9% of the scientists now who just accept the theory of evolution as fact, do they just not look into it deeply enough, or are they bad people? Or, I mean, why would someone so smart who makes their entire life out of this doing research just say, oh, yeah, this is the way it is?
Well, they've got a definite financial investment, having gone to college and gotten their degree and basing their entire life around it. They don't have much incentive to then try to disprove it. But it goes back to sort of the indoctrination we're given in school as to who the authority is, and not to question the information we're given from that authority. To question what we're told is to question them, and to question the authority, all of society breaks down. Man has to be self-sufficient, self-reliant.
Why would the machine then, the educational machine, favor the theory of evolution? Why would they push that so hard?
Because it gives them an answer to fill in a great big question mark that they can't otherwise answer. So, well, we don't really have an answer, so what we're going to do is we're just going to push this theory, and we're going to run with it, and we're going to present it as fact.
Quick break, right back. Thank you, Josh. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks.